When Elizabeth got the news of her new task, she had a mix of emotions. She was excited to have finally gotten the opportunity to prove that a female comrade is useful in the army as a male comrade. Nevertheless, she was worried since most spies face difficulties and most times kiss Mother Earth goodbye in their cause. The other female comrades were worried about her. They urged her to beg the general for a change of order, but Elizabeth remained obstinate. Even though she was worried, her determination was greater. Will you blame her? She will finally get to team up with the amazing comrade Jonathan, one of the female comrades said, feeling frustrated by her stubbornness. Wait oh, so you dey think of love instead this life and death issue? Another asked her. You are unbelievable. Elizabeth hissed and left them. That night, Comrade Jonathan, Elizabeth, and one other male comrade gathered at the general's office. They were given necessary information concerning the tasks ahead, as well as strict warnings to stick to orders. Before daybreak, they set out for their enemy's camp. They left with packed food, maps, and other resources to protect themselves in time of emergency. They arrived 3 days later by boat. They changed their clothes in order to blend in with the others without being caught. Elizabeth dressed as a cook, while Comrade Jonathan and the other comrade wore uniforms that was identical to the soldier's uniform. Elizabeth's heart raced as they approached the camp's entrance. Halt! A comrade said strictly. Identify yourself, he said again. Elizabeth bit her lip as her fear grew. Were they already going to be caught? She started regretting coming on the mission, but then Comrade Jonathan did something that amazed her. He walked up to the comrade and said a few words in their own code language. The comrade saluted immediately and let them in, but Elizabeth stopped on noticing her frightful grace. The kitchen is within camp. Why were you outside? He asked her, eyeing her suspiciously. Elizabeth found it hard to come up with a convincing lie. She looked at the teammates and felt guilty seeing the disappointment in their eyes. Fortunately, a woman, seemingly in her 40s, also dressed as a cook, walked up towards them and scolded Elizabeth like she knew her beforehand. I told you not to stay out too long, the woman said and dragged her in. Elizabeth heaved a sigh of relief, seeing how they escaped being caught, but turned to the woman with a puzzled look. The woman ignored her gaze as she led the three of them to a small room. I am one of you, the woman finally spoke, showing them her identification badge. They saluted her. I got information about your coming, so I made some preparation. You should sleep here for the time being and mix in with the others later. Elizabeth was moved by the woman's level of orderliness. She was pleased about the fact that a female was given the opportunity to serve their country. Elizabeth held the woman's hand and finally said a heartfelt thank you. I've spent years building trust within this camp for our country's sake. Don't ruin things for me due to your unprofessionalism. Elizabeth felt as if she had been scolded like a child. She recoiled in embarrassment. As soon as the woman left, Comrade Jonathan began briefing them. He explained that they needed to get the map to the country's weapon plant. He explained that the country had discovered a new type of weapon that would be a great threat to them if war broke out. Once we find it, it will be easy for our country to bring them under control, Comrade Jonathan said. The other comrade asked a few questions, which initiated them into arriving at a plan. Elizabeth just watched, feeling somewhat intimidated. We will stick to the plan, Jonathan said, and then turned to Elizabeth with a stern look. If we get caught, we will be dead meat. Elizabeth nodded, but then frowned. Why is he looking at me when saying that? It's not like I will ruin things, she thought to herself. She felt even more motivated at this, determined to prove she was a capable comrade. But as her mind drifted back to her mother and sister, her heart softened, and she prayed silently for God's protection. The next day, Comrade Jonathan mixed up with others, especially the high-ranked ones, very focused on getting information. The other comrade planted bugs in secret that recorded conversations. Elizabeth mingled with other maids in the kitchen. 3 days later, during training sessions, Comrade Jonathan sneaked into an instructor's office. It happened to be that one of the bugs they planted had recorded conversation that made them believe an important information was somewhere in that office. As Jonathan slipped out of the gathering, the other comrade diverted others' attention to make sure he lived unnoticed. Jonathan entered the office unnoticed. He started searching cautiously. He saw a box kept on high cabinets. He searched for it, trying not to make any noise. This isn't it, he muttered to himself. As he turned to continue searching, he heard footsteps behind him. He became alert. What are you doing? The person asked, suspicious of his behavior. Jonathan stopped what he was doing abruptly. The only thing he could think of was a way to escape. He turned to face the mean-looking man in uniform. The man frowned at him and asked for his identification. Jonathan acted fast. He moved swiftly towards the man and smacked him at a spot on the neck. The man fell instantly, unconscious. Jonathan rushed to leave, but then he heard someone gasp. He turned to his right and found a comrade running away shouting, "We have an intruder!" Jonathan's eyes widened. Their cover has been blown. Things wouldn't go smoothly anymore. Back at home, Elizabeth's family was preparing to go shopping. Anita was talking about the exam she was supposed to take in a few months' time as she ran up with the shopping list. Her mother was walking down the steps hastily, complaining about how expensive things would get at the market if they arrived late. When she mistakenly missed a step, she almost fell, hurting her big toe. "Are you alright?" Anita asked, rushing to her. Her mother stood still for a moment. "This is a bad sign," she said aloud. "You have started with your suspicions," Anita said. "When last did you get a call from your sister Elizabeth?" Her mother asked, even more worried. "I'm not sure. It has been a while, Sha," Anita replied, scratching her forehead. Seeing the look on her mother's face, she chuckled and said, "I'm sure she's doing fine. It's not like she has ever been assigned to a task." Her mother shook her head and went back upstairs to change her dress. She cancelled the shopping and decided to go to church instead. Elizabeth was in the kitchen with other cooks when her AirPod buzzed. Knowing it was a direct call from Comrade Jonathan, she withdrew herself from the others, trying not to raise suspicions. "Report to the hideouts, over," Jonathan said from the other end. Elizabeth became alerted. She knew instantly that was an emergency. The hideout was the same room they first entered on their arrival. Elizabeth walked back to the others. Her plan was to follow up with the kitchen activity for a while before sneaking out to avoid anyone on her tail. But just then, the chief cook walked up to her. He gave her a tray of dishes and asked her to deliver it to the general. Elizabeth was worried. What if she delayed for long and caused something uneventful for her teammates? Nevertheless, she took the tray and briskly walked out. "I wonder what this emergency summon is all about," she muttered to herself. Upon approaching the general's office, she knocked once and waited but got no response. She heard people whispering from the inside. Curiosity got the best of her. She leaned in, pressing her ear against the door to eavesdrop. "I am sure of it, sir," someone said with a more higher tone. "So we have a spy among us?" Another person, whom Elizabeth suspected to be the general, asked. "I can recognize his face, sir." The general paused for a while, then said, "I am sure they want to lay hands on the map. Inform the others, this is an order." Elizabeth's eyes widened. The general had just given an order for a thorough search to be conducted. She tried to compose herself as she knocked again. This time, the door opened. The man who had been talking with the general came out. He gestured her to go in. As he walked past her, Elizabeth spotted the colonel badge on his shirt and quickly looked away, realizing how dangerous the situation was already. She went in, dropped the tray of dishes, still maintaining a demure essence. The general was frantically searching for something when she walked in. It was a perfect time to leave unidentified and as well report the issue to her teammates. But curiosity made her hesitate. The general gave a satisfying smile as he finally got his eyes on a brown box on the shelf. He took it back to his table. That was when he noticed Elizabeth. He gave her an inquiring look. Elizabeth trembled. She pointed towards the dish she brought and briskly walked out. A few steps away, she stopped to catch her breath. "If only I can lay my hands on that box," she thought to herself. "I am sure it holds something important." She looked around and saw comrades forming an assembly at the other end of the camp. That was when she remembered Jonathan had called her. As she made to leave, there was an outbreak of alarming sounds from afar. She saw smoke rising up in thick clusters. She hid behind a pillar as she analyzed what was going on. Comrades ran here and there. "After them!" a colonel yelled. "After who?" Elizabeth asked herself in whispers. "Oh no!" she gasped, wondering if her teammates had been discovered. "Put out the fire!" another instructor ordered. Just then, the general rushed out of his office towards the center of the camp. He seemed to have been in a very tense state as he forgot to lock the door behind him. Elizabeth began to think fast. Should she respond immediately to Jonathan's call, or should she sneak into the general's office to get her hands on the strange box? There was this moment of intense disagreement in her mind. Her knees were weak, but her mind urged her to seize the opportunity. She made a cross sign before slipping into the general's office. She found the box at the same spot. Being watchful to avoid being caught, she took the box and tried to open it. Unfortunately, the box was locked with a passcode. Elizabeth gave it several attempts, but it could not unlock. Then she began to hear footsteps approaching.
Hurriedly, she took the box and escaped. "What took you so long?" Comrade Jonathan asked with worry etched on his face as Elizabeth stepped in. Elizabeth was a bit flustered seeing how worried he was about her. She was even expecting strict rebuke from him. She turned around and was relieved to see her teammates, including the woman they had met earlier, all safe in the hideout. "Who were they chasing?" Elizabeth asked, puzzled. "I caused a diversion," the woman explained. "The people that were being chased were mere farmers. They were lured to cause a diversion, pretending to be spies themselves." "So, what if they get caught?" Elizabeth asked, feeling a pang of guilt as the farmers were obviously ignorant of the danger involved. "What is more important is that you all are safe," the woman said, avoiding Elizabeth's question. Jonathan explained his identity has been leaked and he had to remain hidden till the end of the mission. "We don't have much time. In days we may be all figured out." Elizabeth was still worried about the farmers. The woman with them excused herself and left, emphasizing that they stay safe. The other comrade left as well, saying he needed to check how intense the situation was outside. Elizabeth was alone with Jonathan when she showed him the box she found. "I couldn't crack the code," she said as she gave it to him. Jonathan observed it for a while before making attempts to unlock it. He also tried to break the box open, but it was made of an indestructible material. It was difficult, but Jonathan was rather smarter. In a few hours, he got the box unlocked. Alas, the map was actually in the box. "You did it!" Jonathan exclaimed excitedly. Impulsively, he went up close to her for an embrace. But then, he refrained himself as he felt awkward. "You found the map," he said again, beaming. Elizabeth was equally happy. She had this look of triumph on her face. "Of course I did. Still, we couldn't have gotten any positive results if you hadn't unlocked the box," she said. Elizabeth was glad they would finally be going home. That night, they packed food and other important resources ready to leave. Late hours into the night, when security had relaxed a little, the team took the map with them and escaped. They walked through the bushes instead of main pathways to avoid being exposed. The thick bush and dark nights made it difficult for them to find their way, but Jonathan led them confidently. They ran steadily through the bush paths, looking back now and then to know if they were being followed. At a point, Elizabeth turned around. Somehow, she stepped on a heap of dirt. She stumbled and fell, rolling down to the pathway. She stood up quickly, but then she felt a sharp pain in her navel, which made her hesitant and groaned. Her teammates urged her to clamber back, but before she could move, a beam of flashlight landed on her from behind. She froze. Her teammates gasped. "Maybe na wild animal," a voice echoed from afar. "Check it out," another voice yelled. Elizabeth was immediately pulled by her teammates as they ran through the bushes. "Spies! Spies!" the voice echoed behind them as they ran. They ran with more speed, stumbled, fell, and ran again, till they got very far off, and it seemed as though they were no longer being chased. They carefully laid up tents to pass the night at a clear spot. The cold became intense, the sound of birds flapping their wings and flying off speedily. The sound of footsteps. Elizabeth opened her eyes. She was alone in the tent. Her eyes widened. Had they abandoned her? "Look here!" She heard harsh voices of men. Suddenly, the tent opened and a pistol was pointed at her forehead.